What's good, YouTubers and YouTubettes? This is JB Sports, back again with another one. Adam Schefter of ESPN, through sources, now is reporting that the Cowboys plan to interview former Green Bay Packer head coach Mike McCarthy, who won a championship with the Green Bay Packers at Jerry's World, AT&T Stadium. They defeated the Pittsburgh Steelers 31-26, and Aaron Rodgers was the Super Bowl MVP. So Jerry Jones had an up-close and personal view of Mike McCarthy coaching a team to a championship, as he's been on the sideline ever since he was dismissed unceremoniously from the Green Bay Packers at the end of the 2018-2019 season. So they plan to meet with him sometime today, and they already met with former Cincinnati Bengal head coach Marvin Lewis. They met with him earlier Saturday, and after spending some time with him Friday. So they actually have met with Marvin Lewis twice. So we'll see what happens, man. Mike McCarthy, I think he'll bring some discipline to that team. He's a commanding leader. He'll help improve that offense. I think he'll be a solid hire. Will he be the best hire? That remains to be seen. But as far as Marvin Lewis goes, that's kind of a surprise to me, man. Marvin Lewis, I can't see too much daylight between Marvin Lewis and Jason Garrett. To me, they're the same coach. You know, actually, Jason Garrett, he's won a couple of playoff games. Marvin Lewis has never won a playoff game in his tenure with the Cincinnati Bengals. But Marvin Lewis is a guy that is known to be a very solid head coach. He hired some great assistant coaches. He hired Mike Zimmerman, and Zimmerman got hired with the Minnesota Vikings as a head coach. He had what's the guy? He had his offensive coordinator got hired by the Cleveland Browns before he was dismissed. And they brought in Fred Kitchens this past season. So he's had some guys under the Marvin Lewis coaching tree that have been hired. So he does, at least a good job of recognizing and hiring good assistant coaches. So, but as far as head coach, I don't see, that seems like that's a parallel move from Jason Garrett to Marvin Lewis based on accomplishment. I think Marvin Lewis is probably a little bit more of a dynamic leader than Jason Garrett, but you look at their track records are eerily similar, and you can make a case that Jason Garrett has a better overall track record, considering that he has 2 playoff victories to 0 for Marvin Lewis. Now, one thing I can see maybe happening, it's just me, I don't have any inside knowledge, but maybe they bring Marvin Lewis in as the defensive coordinator, make him the highest paid defensive coordinator, and bring him in because, he was the architect of that 2000 Baltimore Ravens defense that won a championship and went down as one of the greatest defenses of all time, along with the 1985 Chicago Bears, as they stifled everybody during the regular season and stifled the Tennessee Titans. Al McNair and Eddie George was able to go in there and defeat them. They stifled the Oakland Raiders, led by Rich Gannon, and offensive guru at the time, John Gruden, and then went to the Super Bowl and laid the hammer to Kerry Collins and the New York Giants, as they had just got through putting up big numbers in the NFC Championship when they blanked the Minnesota Vikings, led by Chris Carter and Andre and Moss. They got them 41-0. So he's had very, 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 very interesting. So he was architect of that great defense. So if they can bring him in, if he's willing to accept the defensive coordinator position, then they might be looking at bringing him in on that angle. Maybe they do a 2-for-1. They hire Mike McCarthy, and they ask Mike McCarthy to bring in. Well, they bring in. They ain't gonna ask him. They bring in Marvin Lewis as a defensive coordinator, and that'd be a hell of a 1-2 punch. They have Mike McCarthy running the offense and Marvin Lewis running the defense. Now, it's just pure speculation on my part, but I just have a hard time believing they're looking seriously at Marvin Lewis as a head coach, man, based on his tenure with the Cincinnati Bengals. He'll be looked on as a much more favorable acquisition if they bring him in as a defensive coordinator. Like I said, you can see with the work he's done with the Baltimore Ravens, and before then he was with the Washington Redskins. And he was able to, after he left Baltimore, he went to the Washington Redskins, and he greatly improved their defense. So he's one of the great defensive minds in the history of the NFL, and he'll be a great acquisition. So we'll see what happens, man. But that's what's going on, man. They've got 2 coaches on their radar so far right now. All of them former head coaches, and both of them have took their teams to the playoffs, and in Mike McCarthy case, won a Super Bowl championship. So we'll see what happens, man. We'll see if any other coaches come into the on the Cowboys radar, man. I'll do a video and break those head coaching candidates down too. But so far it's 2, and we'll see what happens. This is JB Sports, the man, the myth, the legend. Holla.